So I'm curious what you've been finding when you talk to accountants. You're telling them about this product. They get the concept of the product. So what have been like some of the ways people are saying like, hey, here's how LiveFlow can help us? Like what's some of that direct feedback they've been giving you?
Yeah, a lot of terminology, I would say. As a person in tech, I would just use something different when I communicate. And I think what I learned is just to use the right language. So for example, one of the features that appeared just because of accountants is called drill down. So accountants would always say drill down. Okay. So essentially what it means, LiveFlow connects your QuickBooks reports to Google Sheets and to any customized dashboard. And then you present, as an accountant, you present this dashboard to your client, but the client wants to drill down into the numbers to understand which underlying transactions went into this account. So let's say you have, I don't know, you sell shoes and you have like income coming from shoes and you have some number for January 2023 and you want to see the breakdown of those transactions. So you would say how to drill down into this account. And that's how the language appeared. And I remember the conversation that we had, like, how should we name the feature so that everyone understands? And we asked our users and everyone just said it's a drill down. And while the word kind of doesn't exist in the language, we had to come up with a product tab which is called drill down, just because all of the users just simultaneously said it's a drill down. Okay, fine. So we created it, and now you can drill down into the transactions, and it works, and everyone gets it.
So also, we have a new subscriber sponsor, LiveFlow.
Ooh.
So we're going to do more stuff with LiveFlow, Nicole.
Back.
Yeah, LiveFlow is back for good. So we're gonna continue this train of LiveFlow flow. You have a beautiful testimonial that you wrote for LiveFlow.
Yes, I love it. I'll tell you how I'm using LiveFlow. I'm using it for a handful of different use cases. Automating month-end close, number one use case. So our process is that the bookkeeper or preparer goes in, does the month-end close. So if you have a prepaid schedule, the prepaid schedule ties to the balance sheet. You can automate anything in the GL detail. You can automate AP aging, AR aging. So my goal with the workbooks is so that whoever the accounting manager reviewer is can go in there and review a month-end file in 15 minutes because the bookkeeper has done all the work and done their own self-check.
So that's automation with an exclamation mark.
Yes, it's pretty dope.
Dope books.
Dope books. Okay.
Dopebooks.com.
Second use case. I built out a forecast in Google Sheets, and the live data from QBO comes in, right? The actuals. So I'm reviewing the accounting and we have to update something. You just literally hit the little button and it refreshes everything. So you can see the numbers change in front of you.
That's true automation.
We finally hacked it and did it. Like, it's so cool.
Wow. You're a programmer.
I'm actually a paying user, so I actually pay LiveFlow to use the product.
Yeah. It's the truth in advertising and the truth in product feedback. I don't want to just run one and done ads anymore. That's not what we do with this show. We have PR partners. We have people that we are going to partner with long term, and that's the solution for this problem. And I write a wrap for them, and we do another case study, and we refresh that, and we give them sound bites and things that they can use. So we're an arm for them to use as PR. So if they need an announcement and they need to get something out to their people, we're that megaphone. We're not affiliated with them. We're partnered with them. Or I guess we're affiliated, but we're just more or less partner with them. Anita's awesome. I love her. And so we're going to have Terrell come on a little bit more to do things with LiveFlow.
May I have your attention, please?
Welcome to Accounting High. It's freshman year at a brand new school. Here, we have no rules in place as we're on a mission to set our own traditions. So hang tight and learn with us as we grow. At Accounting High, you can expect to gain knowledge in a completely different way than what you may be used to, with some fun and oftentimes colorful conversations. Whether you loved high school or you hated it, here's your chance to be a part of an unforgettable experience redone. While you're here, don't forget to follow us on Spotify or subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may be listening to us right now so you don't miss out on any new episodes. And feel free to leave us a 5-star review letting us know how the school year is treating you. In addition, share this episode on social media, tagging us at Accounting High. So sit back, relax, and open your mind because class is in session.
I repeat, may I have your attention, please?
This is another public service announcement brought to you in part
by Accounting High.
The views and events expressed here are
of the next generation of accounting and tech professionals leading this space.
The events and suggestions are not to be taken lightly. Children should not partake in the listening
of this podcast.
Anything else?
Yeah.
So without further ado, introducing the star of our show.
Scotty and
We're
Terrell.
gonna have a problem here.
All right.
So,
all right.
welcome to Accounting High. Today, we get to have a behind-the-scenes conversation. You know, I was thinking about this before we got on, and I was like, this is kind of like when you go back to high school, and when you see, like, people that are doing really cool stuff in high school, like the athletes or the cheerleaders or the really smart kids, and you're like, man, I wish we could be friends with them, to have conversations with them. That's what I feel like today's episode is.
Oh, and we're going across the pond too. Anita is so dope, right? Like this is, I'm just so excited to have Anita on the show that she even wanted to come on. You know, this is.
I'm absolutely excited to be here. I'm pumped. You can see me smiling. I just cannot calm down my face. It's so happy.
Well, that's how you always look. You always have that smile on every time I've seen you. So let's just like set the lay of the land. We got a co-host with me today. We got Terrell Turner on. Basically, Terrell's our executive producer now. That's what I've currently called him. And in the label of the high school, he is in charge of the media center. He is the media library. He's our librarian at the school. So I'm honored to have you come on, Terrell, and host this interview with me. This is going to be great. You want to talk about what we're going to do today?
Yeah, so today we are having, like I said, we're having a behind-the-scenes conversation with LiveFlow. I mean, I think this is a dual purpose. At Accounting High, I mean, we really care about, you know, the accounting industry, the accounting profession, and one of the great ways of getting a better understanding is to talking to people who provide products to the accounting profession. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to ask about what's the roadmap look like for LiveFlow. And we're also going to talk about, you know, the tech, you know, what that journey has been like, because there are several people in the accounting industry who are considering making, you know, tech products or making products that they were missing themselves, but would love to have seen offered to accountants. So we'll talk about what Anita's journey like that has been. So it's going to be a good conversation.
Yeah, we're also in the heat of our March Aptness, our ABC tournament, and LiveFlow is a contestant in that tournament. This is right now we're in round 1 of the accountant bracket challenge, and LiveFlow made the cut, so we can discuss that too. Anita's the co-founder and head of marketing and sales at LiveFlow. Where are you based out of again?
Yeah, I'm kind of split between 2 locations. Right now I'm in London, UK, but I just moved to New York and I'm wrapping things up in London. And yeah, the reason I moved to New York and like my co-founder and the rest of the team, that's because we have 100% of our audience in the United States and Canada, and we just need to be closer and be around whenever customers need us.
New York, New York, New York. I'm not wearing my New York hat, but I usually do, so that's cool. And we're also going to talk about processes today too, and how important they are at your firm, and how LiveFlow can play a part into that. So it's going to be dope.
Absolutely. So I will say, let's just jump into it. I mean, with the conversation, I mean, you're the head of marketing and sales. I mean, which that usually is not a role that accountants usually gravitate to naturally. That's just that's not our natural trend. So, I mean, one
but not you, Terrell. Like, Terrell, you're absolutely smashing it. So you're very cool. How come?
He's not your typical accountant, though. Terrell is not. This is why Terrell's on the show today too. Like
Fair
most
enough.
accountants are in the back room. They're doing the work. They're in front of getting in front of people is tough for a lot of people. So
it
introverts.
is. And I will say, personally, I will say is it took a lot to work up to that. Like, that wasn't my natural thing. Like, it's a learned skill for me. So I'm curious from your perspective is, how did you even get into, like, you know, the sales and marketing? Because, I mean, you have co-founders with the organization. How did they decide, like, Anita, you're going to do sales and marketing?
Well, the story starts basically with the choice of my profession, right? So I was always passionate about it, and I started my career as a business developer, and then I was in charge of business development at the company called Travelut, and I worked on one of the products. And I kind of just bumped into accounting rather than being an accountant, first of all. That's how it started. So I worked at the company called Travelut. I was in charge of business development of one of the products called Rewards. And my role was just to work with small and medium businesses, as well as the bigger ones like Uber and Amazon, and side them on rewards to give the best offers for our users. Just for context, Travelut is a B2C bank where you can just use the Revolut card to travel abroad and pay like at home, and then our goal was just to be the main card in the wallet. And I would just go down to like small shops downstairs, like coffee shops and stuff, to sign them to give the best discounts and cashback offers, as well as mentioned Uber and Amazon. Interestingly enough, it was easier to sign Uber and Amazon than local brands because they didn't speak the same language, where I would say like, okay, this is the payback model, this is the customer acquisition cost, this is how it works. And they would be like, what? And
Kind of like how you were when I tried to pitch the tournament to you. I was talking about the tournament. You're like, what?
Well, and it was like, what's wrong? Why don't we speak the same language? And at the time, I met Lasse, who is my co-founder and CEO, and he previously like ran multiple small businesses himself and failed with a few and always struggled with financial management. So at Travelut, we kind of saw the problem firsthand when we went down there just to talk to them. And then internally, we juggled a lot of spreadsheets when just working on finances of this product in particular. And we were like, why isn't it there's a better way just to first understand the numbers and manage these numbers in spreadsheets? And we came up with this idea of LiveFlow and decided to go to Y Combinator. We were lucky enough to be taken into YC's Winter 21 batch. That's how the company started. In January 2021, we just founded it, met our future co-founder, Evan, who is the CTO at that time, and just started to build the product. And the initial idea was, of course, to serve small and medium businesses. And again, we bumped into the same question. What are you talking about? And it was funny because we know that the problem of cash flow management and like the understanding of P&L was there, but there was no immediate feedback where people would say like, oh, the product makes perfect sense. Let's roll. Let's do something with it. And we quite naturally started to go for a little bit more mature market of finance teams within B2B SaaS companies or startups that are venture-backed, because they always need to look into their finances and understand where they stand. And then I think sometime after, we saw some inbound traffic from accountants asking about the product. And we're like, hold on, but does it mean that accountants that work with small and medium businesses have the same mission as we do, just to help them to understand their numbers, to perform, and they do it daily? And that's where it clicked and resonated, and that's how we started to work with accountants and for accountants. That's how the current product is shaped. Accountants use LiveFlow every single day. Terrell, you probably know how it works, since you've been one of the very early customers of ours and gave us a ton of feedback. But basically, the product started to develop way faster because accountants and fractional CFOs give us a lot of insights into how to be more productive. You guys know like how it should be scaled, how it should be explained to the client, etc. So that's because we have this natural communication with accountants and fractional CFOs. We started to serve this industry.
So you bumped into accounting again.
Yes.
Like, this is all accidental. And that's the best stories are people that accidentally back into accounting and they find out how valuable it is and how valuable this community can be too for the product.
What I have to say, I don't know how it happens, but accountants are very grateful. What I mean here, like if you do something that makes sense, you will receive a ton of feedback. Rest assured, you will receive negative too if you're doing something wrong.
Sure.
So there's no way to escape that. And that's also helpful because you can improve your product. But I've never seen positive feedback before with caps lock and 5 exclamation marks, it means you're doing something right. And that's really amazing. That what wakes me up in the morning every single day. Like, I know that what I'm doing makes sense.
Well, to be fair, a lot of accountants type in all caps anyway. That's just how they type. They get their email.
It's not a compliment anyways.
When they're talking normal, they're typing in all caps sometimes. It's just easier when you're doing taxes. Just keep everything in all caps. You're dealing with numbers. Numbers are all caps.
Red, bold,
Way to
caps,
deflate
underline.
her confidence.
So, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I gotta knock things down sometimes. So, LiveFlow is in the bracket challenge, like I said, and you guys are in the bridge bracket, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the way you're describing it, it's like the accountants are your bridge to the business owners because it was hard for you to go direct to them. And now with accountants on your side and actually using the product too, we're also the bridge to get in front of more business owners too. Are you still marketing to business owners as well as accountants?
Not right now, because again, accountants resonate with us like in a split second. It makes perfect sense when you say that LiveFlow provides the database with client reports that can be configured into any live customized dashboard. Accountants resonate and they understand what it means to build customized dashboards where you tailor it to any certain industry. And now, Terrell, you work with franchises or law firms, and these reports and dashboards will be widely different. And it's all clear, but when you talk to a business owner, they don't really understand the same thing immediately, and they don't necessarily have the need right now to dive into it. When you talk to an accountant and say, like, do you want to get back at least 2 days a month or 1 month a year with reports that will be auto-populated at all times, and you will not do the manual job ever again? It resonates way more compared to a business owner who mainly works with an accountant. So they would recommend it to an accountant, but they will not necessarily build out the dashboards.
So that's how you found your MVP, right? Like that's how you figured out like this product is going to be the bridge between QuickBooks and Google Sheets.
Yep.
Yeah. Can I ask a question on that one? Because I mean, I think this is one of those interesting things that Scott and I have talked about when it comes down to talking to accountants and just the whole marketing in the accounting industry. One of the things that I often observe is that, similar to like you guys, you started off trying to talk to business owners because you thought that was going to be your audience. And at some point you got some feedback from the market that said, hey, this is probably not the audience you should be talking to. So you guys change. Now, what I often find with accountants is they get feedback from the market that, hey, you're talking to the wrong audience. And their reaction is, well, I just need to change my messaging. And it's just like, they don't take the feedback. So was it difficult for you guys to stop trying to talk to business owners and start trying to talk to accountants?
Good question. How to put it here? So I wouldn't say that we completely stopped talking to them. Like if you go to the website, you will still get what it does as a business owner, and you can sign up for a free trial. But I think just quite naturally we gravitate towards accountants, and accountants just get it immediately. So we do have some inbound from business owners who are financially savvy and they understand what to do next. But we try to do our best to talk to accountants mainly just because, as I mentioned, it resonates. So we made the change for sure. But we didn't completely exclude ourselves whenever we talk to business owners. So if they want to, they can sign up, but likely they will go through the self-serve plan. They just do whatever they want. But with accountants, we work more strategically where, we have a shared channel. They give us feedback. Like we consider accountants as the ones who give us a lot of valuable feedback to shape the product.
And they're power users of the product too, because
Exactly.
if they're picking it up for themselves, I mean, they're picking it up for multiple clients. So did you change your, I assume your billing structure or your sales arm changed when you pivoted to accountants, because you're not just going one-to-one. Now you're going one to, okay, they're going to be using this
Volume. Yeah.
volume. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we had to make this change because it's quite hard to serve both of the audiences, and sometimes some people are surprised, like, why is it that accountants get the volume discount? Why let's say finance teams wouldn't do that? Just because of the volume, purely. Accountants, as I mentioned, work with the product daily, and it becomes something essential in their tech stack. And again, they give us a lot of inputs and feedback. So the product is now more centered around accountants and scalability and like applying it to multiple clients in one go. That's quite a natural reason, just to help accountants to use it better and like to understand the business model that makes sense to them.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And now, so I'm curious what you've been finding when you talk to accountants. As like you're telling them about this product, they get the concept of the product. So what have been like some of the ways people are saying like, hey, here's how LiveFlow can help us? Like, what's some of that direct feedback they've been giving you?
Yeah, a lot of terminology, I would say. As a person in tech, I would just use something different when I communicate. And I think what I learned is just to use the right language. So, for example, one of the features that appeared just because of accountants is called drill down. So accountants would always say, drill down. Okay. So essentially what it means, LiveFlow connects your QuickBooks reports to Google Sheets and to any customized dashboard. And then you present, as an accountant, you present this dashboard to your client, but the client wants to drill down into the numbers to understand which underlying transactions went into this account. So let's say you have, I don't know, you sell shoes and you have like income coming from shoes and you have some number for January 2023 and you want to see the breakdown of those transactions. So you would say how to drill down into this account. And that's how the language appeared. And I remember the conversation that we had, like, how should we name the feature so that everyone understands? And we asked our users and everyone just said it's a drill down. And while the word kind of doesn't exist in the language, we had to come up with a product tab which is called drill down, just because all of the users just simultaneously said it's a drill down. Okay, fine. So we created it, and now you can drill down into the transactions, and it works, and everyone gets it. That's the main part. The second thing that we built just because of accountants' feedback is the scalability of templates. So we learned that accountants have very repetitive use case. So for example, I'll talk about Terrell again. I know Terrell works with franchises and, let's say, law firms. So I know that franchises need 445 reporting, which is very custom, and it's based on the reporting periods of 4 and 5 weeks. And it's very time-consuming to rebuild the whole 445 dashboard every single time for restaurants, and they need it quite frequently. So we're talking to people like Terrell, and Terrell included, like, learning what can we do for you better. And it turns out that once you build your dashboard that has your logo, your inputs, colors, formatting, anything else that matters to you and your client, you want to have it as a template and scale it across similar franchise or restaurant clients. So we were working for quite a long time to develop the feature which is called plug and play templates, that allows you to turn your own dashboard into a template and then apply to similar clients. And then you can just make a copy of this template, swap the underlying company, and it will be applied with all of the formatting that you saved. And then it's just live. So that's something that purely came from accountants and works for accountants and will not make sense for small businesses because they don't necessarily scale the same report as they have only one business.
That's so
Got
dope.
it.
That
Yeah,
right
I got
there,
a question on the drop down one. So I'm curious, what were the other optional names? Like, you know, because
So for drill
wasn't
down,
a
right?
common one.
Yeah.
Drill down.
Drill down. Yeah,
Drill
the
down.
drill down. So what were the other options?
I think something like around transactions, because it's all about the underlying transactions, but it's kind of a little bit clumsy. You
Clumsy
don't want to
phrase.
say like
Yeah.
underlying look up underlying transactions, something like that. And it was all kind of cumbersome. We didn't like it. But then I remember like an argument, but accountants say it's a drill down, but we cannot say drill down because it's not a noun. How can we put it? You can drill down, but all of the other tabs, and how do we put them together? But
Well,
it was like, it's obvious.
So, well, think about it like this: LiveFlow was not a noun until it was. Until LiveFlow was a thing, it is a noun
Yes.
now, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't
it is,
a noun
yeah.
before. So accountants use drill down all the time. We just create our own nouns. We create our own acronyms.
100%.
Yeah. So LiveFlow now is a noun as well.
Yeah, can be a verb too. Can you live
Yeah.
it or something like that?
Well, it's going to also
You know,
be a
that's
rap
always-
at some point. So.
So, I mean, I guess speaking of kind of like that language gap or that difference in language and difference in perspective, because accountants do kind of speak in their own world, in their own terms. Now, also, I mean, you're not from the U.S. So when Scott pitched the idea of March Madness, did you have any concept of what March Madness was about?
Well, no, not really. Scott appeared.
I ran into this a lot. Trust me, the imagination gap is big with me. So
Yeah, well, it came as a surprise. So I know Scott does podcasts. That's all very clear. And we've been around since Sons of CPAs, and that's been great. And I always give it as an example, like, look how it can be done. It's really great. And then Scott did the rebranding exercise. Now it's Accounting High. It makes perfect sense. And then Scott just shares that he's launching some competition, and I didn't quite catch that. And I was like, can we just jump on the call? I really want to get it. And then I got it because Scott prepared the deck and guided me through all of the things. But it's hard to get the concept of like these competitions because I've never tried this before in my life, and I didn't know what that meant.
You didn't have a frame of reference.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But then the visual part is very helpful when you see the brackets and like how you compete with someone, and then you have like semifinals, finals, etc. That's all very helpful. So the visual part of it was really great.
Oh yeah. So, and that's sort of the same thing with your product too. How some people just like, what does it do? It's a bridge between Google Sheets. But then once they start seeing all the use cases, and I'm serious. Like when you go on the website, or when you go and you see all the different accountant testimonials and ways they use the product and how it's helped them, that's what catches your eye. I think that's as an accountant, or just me, and from a marketing view, when you start seeing validation or start seeing how people are, how it's impacting them and the impact that you're having as a product, then you can pivot and lean in. So would you still consider this early stages for LiveFlow as far as its development and maturity?
Yeah, I think so, given how many things we need to build based on the feedback. So the way it works now, like, we understand what people want us to build, and we prioritize based on customer feedback. And then we just release this feature like in beta for some of the users, just to collect these initial thoughts, and then we release it to wider groups. And the thing about accountants that you guys have so many ideas, and it's always like a never-ending ask to build this, and that. And it's really helpful because you can understand like what really matters, like how to prioritize your own feature requests. It's now literally a wall of things that accountants have requested us to build, and seeing this wall every single day, yes, I can definitely say that we are quite early because there's so much more to build, so many more things to automate. I think it should change the reporting job completely, because it shouldn't be manual. It just doesn't make sense in 2023 and beyond.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So I'm curious, when you're talking to accountants, I mean, of course, just like any product, I mean, because all accounting firm owners run through this ourselves. Like, we may have a conversation with a prospective client, explain what we do, how we solve, we'll talk through pricing. So when you're having that conversation with your prospective clients, what are some of the hesitations that people have before they say, yeah, I'll move forward, or before they actually sign up?
Good question. So there's a bunch. Right now, the first thing that comes to my mind is tax season. No surprise here. Like, that's the most frequent one. No one has time. There are deadlines. I guess it's today.
Today's a deadline.
Yes, and I feel the pressure that accountants feel during the tax season, and yeah, it's really difficult to do anything about it. Like, you should wait, you should be patient, and not to annoy anyone with your emails and stuff. So that's the thing that I learned. So that's the first one. I think apart from that, the point that you touched was around pricing, and that's fair, because what I learned, like, an accounting firm can have hundreds and hundreds of clients that they serve, but it's a very sensitive thing to introduce a new product, because first of all, you need to make sure that it works and the client likes it. So accountants wouldn't really jump into the cold water without knowing that their clients will like it first. So they would need some time to present it and see that it actually works, and they can commit to scaling it. While typically we just want to go for the full contract, where it'll be like, okay, let's go for 100 clients straight away. And our potential customers would be like, look, I really need to test it. I really need to make sure. So we have a free trial right now. You can't do it. But you also need to see how it just chimes into the flows that you have already built, and like whether it replaces any other tools. Accountants also calculate numbers really well. So in terms of costs, you need to prioritize with which tools you use and whether you can use it for something else. And then once you're clear, you can scale, but it takes time.
The flows that you already use, I just love it. I mean, you guys nailed it with the name and the branding. I mean, it's just so easy. It just flows off the tongue, right? But it's a play on workflows and live data, right? Is that
Yes.
Who came up with the name?
That was Les, I think, when we were talking about it, like before kicking the thing off. I think the initial name was Profit.
Oh, really?
That's how it came up.
So original. So original.
You got it.
You guys nailed that. So, so the interesting thing, at least what I'm seeing, is one of your competitors, but it's in the zero space, is GACon.
Mm-hmm.
That's an accountant name for sure. That accountant definitely came up with that name, G-Acon. They're huge in our bracket, but they just work with Zero, I believe, and you guys just work with QuickBooks. Why don't you just merge and eat them up? Like,
well, that's an interesting question. Well, I think we can build Zero ourselves. When we are quite honest about it, we have the list of integrations on the website, something that we are looking at. The reason we don't do everything at the same time because we just really want to be perfect and we don't want to lose anyone. So that whenever you try LiveFlow for QuickBooks, you feel like this is native and there is no reason to leave. That's why. So we started actually when we were building the initial version of the product, we started with the prototype that included QuickBooks Online, Zero, UK banks, US banks, and Canadian banks. And when you start building the product, you just try to understand what sticks and what makes sense. And we started first of all with the US customers. And quite natural, as you can imagine, the customers went for QuickBooks Online and started to give a lot of feedback around it, rather than Zero, which is mainly in Europe, New Zealand, and Australia. And like, I guess they have 6 million users in total in the US, and it's just more straightforward to start with this huge user base that is already there and build for these people who are already very passionate about it and want to make it better, and then expand rather than do everything at the same time. That's how we decided to prioritize, but I'm not saying that we will not have Zero and other integrations. It will come, but at some point.
Zero is a minority in our space. I know this.
But I love that you have their logo meanwhile in the background.
Oh, for sure. Hey, yeah, they just ended up with a permanent fixture. They that used to be on the wall at our office, and they've done co-branding stuff with us all the time, and it makes sense.
That's amazing.
So that's just sort of my nod to Zero. That's where my roots. That's where I came from. Without Zero, there's probably no podcast. So.
Oh my! Well.
But I think that's a smart idea, though. I mean, I think from a business perspective. Because I will say, I know, like you mentioned, Scott has mentioned, as far as like on the marketing and sales side, I would say is I'm probably more of an entrepreneur than I am an accountant. I mean, I am a CPA and all of that stuff or whatever, but I mean, I think from an entrepreneurial lens, I mean, if I'm looking at a market of like, hey, your tool, which accounting platform is it going to work, native with? I mean, I'm picking QuickBooks all day long just because just the sheer size of the market share. I mean, exactly. I think, it's one of those things like people ask us all the time, like our firm, we focus on law firms, and people ask, well, why? And I'm like, have you looked at the data? I mean, there are over 200,000 law firms in the U.S. And how many other firms do you know specialize with them? They're like zero. Then that means it's an open market for me.
Zero, no pun intended.
So I think that's smart.
Yeah, fair enough.
Now, I'm curious, when you mentioned about pricing, because this is something that, I mean, as in full transparency, I've had people reach out to me because they've seen like some of the videos and stuff that I've done for LiveFlow. So they'll ask me questions kind of about, pricing and one of the things that comes up that I think a lot of accounting firms are starting to ask, which I think is smart to consider, is, hey, how do I get my clients to pay for this? Is that a question that you find accounting firms asking during the sales process?
Yeah, and it started to appear more recently. I think our customers started to realize that you can just pass the cost to the client rather than to cover it yourself, and you can be more efficient meanwhile. So the client pays, your job is automated, you have more time, you can onboard more clients. Seems like a win-win for everyone. The client has live dashboards that are always up to date, so what can be better. And on top of that, we're thinking about building a partnership program. There are, I don't know how many tools, but quite a bunch, like Gusto, QuickBooks, I think Crippin, who have partner programs where an accountant serves, let's say, as an ambassador, has a discounted price and gets their client to pay for the product. And that's something that we started to develop just recently, purely again because of the feedback and how the industry works. And we understand that it doesn't really matter to us who takes the cost. As long as it works for yourself and your client, let's go for it. That's something that we just started to introduce with some of the firms, and it works well. So in this case, we just create a comprehended page that looks really great. There is like the start the list price that is crossed out, and then there's a discounted price, let's say through Terrell Turner and TL Turner Group, and that's just because you buy through Terrell, the price is lower, and you pay for the subscription, and Terrell gets a seat inside LiveFlow.
Gotcha. Now, Scott, I'm curious, from your perspective, have there been apps that you guys have used kind of in your accounting practice that you pass the cost to the client?
Always. We do that almost always, just because we're accountants and I watch my margins and everything. So, but typically we do that one with Gusto, and Gusto gives us different options for doing that. So we have the option to either absorb the cost ourselves at a discount. We can pass on the discount to the client, or we have the client pay and then we get a kickback. We chose option 3. So every month we get a check from Gusto, $1,200 or something, just for our clients that are using the product. Mm-hmm. We get a little rev share.
Oh, right? That's so nice. Yeah.
In perpetuity too. There is no there is no expiration for this rev share. So it's pretty cool. I mean, a lot of accounts love the rev share. Like that was just something introduced by Gusto fairly recently. Xero does have an option to pass it on to the client, but it's just more of the client gets your discount or you get the discount and you pay for it. And half of our clients on Xero, we're paying for because it's just part of our bundle with our services. The other half, they're paying for it, but we're getting them a discount, something like that. So,
gotcha. Yeah, because I'm curious on that piece of it, because this is one of those things. Like now, as I said, I'll preface my statement with, I am more of an entrepreneur than an accountant. Mm-hmm. So I can be very upfront, because for me, it's like I'm thinking about what's the problem, I come up with a solution, and I move forward. So from your perspective, like, how did that conversation go with the client as far as, telling them like, hey, this is part of the cost, or we're passing this on? Like, did you get any pushback from clients?
Oh, yeah. So, accountants, we are typically over analytical about things. We don't make a decision to move on. We keep analyzing and beat that decision to death. So we still are beating that one to death, and we still have internal struggles with, are we going to just pay for everybody's Gusto, or are we going to keep passing it on? Is that confusing because we're kind of selling some people Gusto, we're selling them the fact on it, like they're going to be using it, and then turn around and give them the bill to pay for it? Can we make more money if we just absorbed it and then we just said, we're doing your payroll, here's how much we charge? And that's the decision that I've kind of made now that I'm less involved in the day-to-day. I'm looking at it from a client perspective, and client doesn't necessarily care which tool we're going to use. They're not going to go look it up to see how much the tool is, because our concern was, if we're going to charge them for payroll and we're just using Gusto, then they're going to see how much Gusto is on the Gusto's website. And if we're charging more, then they're going to just turn around and go get it themselves. And we ask all of our internal questions that may never happen in a real life scenario. And then all of a sudden we convince ourselves that, we just got to charge Gusto's prices because we can't mark that up because they're going to see how much they're paying. And that's an old decision that we made years ago, and we still haven't shifted from that. So I'm glad you bring that up, because from a business perspective, we should have just absorbed that cost and then charged them an upcharge.
And that's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're doing with ADP, and that's why our margins are so much higher for our clients that are on ADP. So ADP doesn't publish their prices, so we still let the vendor dictate how we did our pricing, because ADP doesn't publish their retail pricing for clients. They're always variable about their pricing. And we get a really great wholesale rate on ADP. So we've always charged our own prices. And when we're doing ADP, that's what we're doing. But ADP is a lot more difficult to use for us. And so we prefer Gusto. Gusto is just a lot easier for the accountant and for the business owner. And it's a lot more interactive between the two of us. So while we're making less money on it, we prefer it, and we still push that on the clients too because it's a better product overall. ADP isn't institutional. If a client has more than 20 employees, we have to use it because Gusto still just doesn't work great with larger volume, but they are more agile for any of our clients with 5 or fewer employees. Immediately they go on Gusto. So that's a great example though of something that, you know, we didn't look at it from a business mindset. We looked at it too analytically, and now it's hurt our margins over the years. So
yeah, because I mean, I look at it the same, because I always tell people from an entrepreneur perspective, I just tell them is like, just increase your pricing. Like, it just include it as part of the package and take your price up. And because the client, because you trying to nickel and dime the client, that's going to get very frustrating. So I like the approach you guys did there. And then also, one of the things that I've done with some of the clients, where if I'm going to pass a cost on to them, I'm really just explaining it to them like, hey, if I'm going to pass this cost on to you, if I can't help you make more money in your business, then you need to fire me anyway. Because if I can't help you make more than $50 to cover this cost, then just fire me. Like, go find another accounting
Did it ever
firm.
happen to you? Or
No client has ever come back and says, well, hey, since I've been working with you, we haven't made more money, so we're going to fire you. Every one of them have come back and said, yeah, you helped us understand things about our numbers to make more money. Because I'm like, that's the easy part. Like, if you have the skill of an accountant and you think like an entrepreneur, you can help every one of your clients make an extra, a minimum, $100,000, several $1,000s a month, depending on the size of the business. Because I mean, I think it's like, if you're doing your job as an accountant, you're looking at the numbers, you see opportunities that they don't see, just give them some advice. And I would say, I've never had a client come back to me and say, well, you haven't helped us make money, so we need to make good on that and fire you. Like, no one has ever said that.
hold on, but I'm trying to understand one thing. So you've been providing this advice for years now, where the clients can increase their revenues, bottom lines, etc. I'm curious, throughout this time, you've been providing the same type of service, and then all of a sudden you come and say, like, look, you need to buy this tool or that tool, but they already know that this is the level that you provide anyways. Wouldn't there be an argument that, well, we received it anyways, why on earth we would buy this tool now?
Yeah, so the way I approach it with them is, I said, hey, getting this tool is going to make us even better, because you'll get more real-time access to the data. Because I'm like, I'm giving you the best that I can with the tools that we had. And I know there were a couple clients that were asking about more real-time, data feeds. And I was like, hey, based on the limitations of the process, there has to be downloaded from the system, then put in the spreadsheet. It's a manual process. Now, if you want faster responses from me, we need to make an investment in a tool. And if we get faster responses, I'm going to be able to help you even more than I'm doing now. And so when I explained it that way to them, they were like, yeah, hands down, let's do it. Let's go get this tool, because if this tool is going to help you give me even better information, then they're like, we're going to make even more money. And I'm like, I agree. And so when we start looking at it that way, I think that changes the whole nature of the conversation to where they aren't like counting pennies and overanalyzing, saying like, well, maybe I can afford it. It's like, no, I'm going to help you make more money so you will be able to afford this and other stuff you want to do.
Yeah, Terrell, you're like a live case study here. So, live case study. So basically, like how you need to action things. So on this point, I remember, Terrell, you were the first one out of our customers who started to use LiveFlow and Google Data Studio. So essentially, Google Data Studio is a very visual tool that allows you to bring mind-blowing dashboards to your clients. Really mind-blowing. And it looks like a standalone product. And you can literally sell it as like, now we have this comprehensive package where you can see your consolidated entities, you can see the trends, like your revenue trends and like what's going on. It can be highlighted. You can switch and toggle the months and year-to-date periods, month-to-month comparison, all sorts of things that doesn't smell like Google Sheets. And it looks very professional. And for that, Terrell, as I remember, you increased your fees by 35% or something. But what I want to say here is like, one thing that I've noticed that you do differently, like you add way more value than just like, this is the tool, pay for it. It's more so you say like, look, I can provide you a completely different level of service and you can get so much value. This is a sneak peek. Do you want that? And I think this is different, just saying like, okay, this is LiveFlow, this is the payment link. They will be like, cool, and so what?
Well, and that's part of the imagination gap for the other side of the user. When you're when you're already sold on something, so the accountant's sold on how this is going to be better, they don't necessarily know how to sell that to the end user. So they're convinced, and you can't convince somebody if you just give them the logistics. You've got to give them a little bit of showmanship and tell them how it's going to improve them, how this is going to better them, not just you. A lot of accountants just see it from their own worldview or their perspective. This is going to make us better, and that's why we can't pass this on to the client, because the client, like, they don't see it from that perspective. So Terrell's got an interesting way of looking at it. One thing that you mentioned, Terrell, that's probably the biggest unlock for anybody is you recognized there were limitations in the process, and it was your process that was being limited, and then this is an outside tool or something new that can be introduced to then unlock the entire process. And that's what automations do at our firms. That's what, whenever we introduce something new, like ChatGPT is the big unlock for the world right now. Like, limitations in everybody's brain processing. Now we have an AI assistant to help us with everything and anything, right? But when you're looking at your processes, a lot of firms, that's their limitations to grow or to do anything. They hit ceilings when their processes aren't matching up, or they don't even have documented processes. LiveFlow is just a play on that word processes, workflows, processes, LiveFlow, right? So LiveFlow is being inserted in that process to then create an entirely new process that's better too. And that's their product. That's your product that you're selling the client. So I think that's beautiful. It's awesome how you did that.
Absolutely. I mean, and that makes me curious, like, developing a product, trying to take customer feedback. I mean, when you guys have as many customers as you do, I mean, it can be overwhelming. So what does the process look like for you guys collecting that feedback and then figuring out, like, because I'm sure your CTO Evan is probably like pulling his hair out, thinking like, man, we got all these accountants who are making all these requests. Like, what's the process for handling all that?
That's also a good one. So I think we have quite a big, I would say, team of accountants who have insights into how things should function. Like, Terrell, you're one of those who just know what should be done and have been with us very early on, like very first customers. It means like you have this passion and you have the attitude to just implement something new, and likely you will have like more ideas when you see us developing the product. So we have this group of early customers who really contribute every single time, and we can always come back and say, hey, what do you think about this feature, that feature? Then you have like the majority of customers who just come and say like, look, I want this integration, or I want this and this and that. And then we'll just ask, why do you actually want that? And sometimes you can figure out what the person wants with the setup that is already there. It just needs to be better explained. And the person needs some help, but it's already possible. Alternatively, when it's not there, we just try to get to the very end of the why question, like maybe the questions like of 5. The rule of 5 whys, where you just dig deeper into like what is the bottom line here, like what are we trying to figure out, and then we record it as a product outcome. So essentially what it means, the person wants to achieve something and we need to find a way to get there, rather than call it just, oh, that's a feature, like that's X. Like, you want the outcome, and we collect like every ticket has like the product outcome, what the person wants to achieve. We have all of the people who submitted their feedback, their emails, and we remember that we need to come back to them. And essentially it's like a voting system where you have these votes, you understand the priority, whether it's like critical or it's nice to have, and then how people speak about it. It's very important, as we just discussed, to speak the same language. And then we just prioritize based on like the votes and like which features we think have the tremendous impact, the outcome, and then we just start building it. So Evan is the one who works on the prioritization framework, and he is better equipped to talk about it. But this is the overall picture of how we think about what customers want and how we release our next features for them.
That's so awesome. You're tracking outcomes and you're looking at outcomes. Ron Baker talks about that a lot, like looking at what's the intended outcome of a decision, and for you, in your case, what's the outcome of this product feature or of this request.
Yep.
It brings up the point of, do you guys track OKRs, or do you have any internal OKRs?
We started to do it. Our team has grown quite a lot recently. We actually doubled in size. And all of a sudden you have so many people you need to talk to, so many things you need to track, and you need to communicate not even twice more, you need to communicate way more. And we started to realize that it cannot happen in, let's say, one-on-ones or messages as before, and we need to have a very clear North Star metric. And then from there, we need to have like company OKRs, KPIs, etc. So we just started to do it as we just realized that the previous systems of a small start do not work anymore.
I have one OKR, and that's my new rap name. That's the one that's going to be doing the LiveFlow rap. Yeah, but it stands for something different. It's OK Rapper. So.
OK Rapper. That's a good one.
I think that how much has that changed the game for you guys, Scott? Like in the firm, I know you and I were working on that.
Rapping now? Is that?
we'll get to that one.
That has changed the firm, yeah.
The rest of the OKRs, like when you guys started operating with OKRs,
sure,
what were you doing before that?
Well, and that's interesting that you bring that up. So we've been doing EOS for pretty much 6 years now, 6 or 7 years, and that's reshaped the way that we run the entire firm, and that's changed my mindset on almost everything and looking at this like an actual business. I used to have people tell me, you need to work on the business, not in the business, and didn't necessarily know what that meant. I read E-Myth for accountants, and still started to formulate what that meant. Ron Baker used to say it all the time. It wasn't until we found EOS and we started to actually do that process. So that's the entrepreneurial operating system and those processes, and we started to adopt those, and it was very difficult for us looking at things from our worldview and our echo chamber to get out of that and start tracking, okay, what are our important goals? What are our rocks for this quarter? What are the things that we need to do, and what are the things we need to improve on? What are the processes we need to map out and create SOPs, standard operating procedures? So all of those things took a lot of time, and it changed the way we ran the firm internally. I still don't think we're at the phase where we have any real OKRs yet, besides me as a rapper. We have KPIs that we kind of track, and we try to look at leading indicators, but we're still not the greatest at looking at the outcomes of our decisions and the outcomes for our clients. So I think that's still another phase that we need to work on.
And I guess for the people who are listening, can you explain the difference between KPIs and the OKR? Because I think a lot of people here, they use those words kind of interchangeably, and I don't think that they understand the difference between the two.
I think they're a big difference. So KPIs, key performance indicators, I see them, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm seeing them as sort of the inputs and the things that you're doing, and the things that you can use as leading indicators to create a better outcome, but it's not the outcomes. And the outcomes and the KPIs, the OKRs, are looking at what are the impacts of the decisions that you're making and keeping an eye toward the targets. So the OKR is the actual target, and I think the KPI is the arrow.
Yeah, I think I would just explain it pretty much the same way. So we came up with this idea of a North Star metric that works for the entire company. So it's something, up in the sky. This is the ideal outcome for the entire company. And then we kind of split it into the departmental OKRs and then KPIs. So back to the point of OKRs, it's kind of mini North Stars, if you wish, where it's just an objective, something that you want to achieve. So, for example, grow efficiently. Like I'm talking about, let's say, sales and marketing, which we touched before. And then KPIs will be more concrete and measurable, and these are more outcomes that you are targeting. But they all work together with the objective that you have, and then with the North Star metric for the entire company.
So the North Star metric is the target itself. The little dot in the target is the OKR, like the little yellow dot in the middle, and the arrow is the KPI?
Yeah, kind of. So, the North Star metric is something that you want to achieve, and then it's not to say unachievable, but it's up in the star in terms of like it's what guides you.
It's the guiding light, yeah.
Exactly, the guiding light. And then you break it down into something more concrete for each of the departments and then people individually. But yeah, that's how we take it on our side.
Cool. So I think we're gonna need to wrap it up here in a minute. I got another meeting to go to, but let's get some closing statements and remarks and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So my perspective on this is really, and Anita, a question to you is, based on all the conversations you're having with accountants, based on what you kind of learned in your own journey with LiveFlow, how the product, the business, the approach, and has evolved over time, what piece of advice would you give to other accounting firm owners as they're trying to do that in their own business? They're trying to evolve their business model. They're trying to evolve their message, and they're trying to, improve the way they relate to their potential customers. What advice would you give to them for that?
Good question. Let me think. I saw different types of firms. Those who already have the processes in place and they know where LiveFlow will be helpful. Those who just jump straight into the product, literally hands on the keyboard, very hands-on, will just implement everything themselves, kick things off, give us feedback, and they just roll. Because they've been doing it for many years manually, and they perfectly know what they want to achieve. And there are firms that have heard it from a friend and they want to get there, and then we'll just have a conversation and we arrive together and see whether LiveFlow is a fit and how we get there. And then they get there and they're very grateful, and that's where caps lock appears, which I mentioned before, with exclamation marks, because you help them to get the outcome that they wanted and they saw their friends had, just because they learned, they had some learning curve with us and they feel very, very grateful. So I think the difference between the two is just the clear vision of the firm that you want to build, and a clear plan how you want to get there. And our product is just the instrument on the way. It's just one of the things that can help you to get there. But it comes from the business owner, accounting firm owner themselves, knowing what they want to achieve. So I think, coming back to your original question, what my advice would be probably just to have an idea which firm you're trying to build and where you want to build, say, in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, etc. And talk to other firms that utilize various tools. Maybe we're one of the tools, maybe we're not, but your peers likely know what's going on, and more advanced accounting companies would have the setup that might help you to get there. Yeah, that's probably one thing if you want to grow, just to understand what is, again, the North Star we have, and then what are the milestones to get there, and just after that, just embedding all of these tools rather than trying all of the tools for the sake of it. I don't think it's very useful spend of your time.
I love that. The firm needs to step back and look at what is their North Star. Find your North Star, and then look at that guiding light in any decision that you're making from there. That makes it easier to say yes to things or to make decisions, because if you're using that guiding light to guide you, you're not going to be you're not going to be wavering back and forth. You have that one direction that you're going in, so if a decision's going to get you there or not. And then if it doesn't, you can easily cut bait too, if it starts taking you in the other direction too.
Exactly. You said it better. Thank you.
No, you said it. I rehashed it. That's dope. I love that. The guiding light. That's the North Star, the guiding light. I think that might be the title of this too. That's dope.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank
well,
you.
Anita, thank you for your time.
It's been a pleasure.
Scott, thank you for your time. We got to get you off to your next meeting.
Yeah, I'm gonna play our outro. Outro is out. Terrell, you got any closing remarks?
I would say if you're listening to the closing remark, go back and listen to the rest of the episode. A lot of great
Joe.
content in there. But I do think that the piece about the discussion we had about pricing is something that I think every accounting firm should internalize, because I think when you recognize we are selling outcomes, we're not selling our service, we're not selling a product, we are selling an outcome.
We're not selling compliance.
Yes, absolutely. We are really selling an outcome, because, I mean, at the end of the day, the customer is really paying for the outcome, not the process that we have to go through. And I think the better we get at being able to describe and explain the outcome, the easier it is to get customers to willingly pay. And if you want to increase your prices, if the outcome is valuable enough, people will pay for it.
Dope.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Class dismissed. Ride it out. Peace out, homies.